Hey everyone, Brennan here, an American nurse living and working in Sweden. I've gotten a lot of questions about salaries in Sweden, especially compared with in the United States. So a good place to start is here, this website. This is the statistics here in Sweden. It is a agency that I've noticed a lot of people go to look at different salaries in Sweden. And I was surprised. I usually look at it in Swedish. There is a feature to change it into English. So up here, I've changed it from Swedish to English. Okay, so now I've gotten it pulled up here. We've got professional nurses. This is, I guess, the equivalent that you would say to just a grundutbildad sjuksköterska, which is like a ground-based educated nurse. No specialties or anything of that nature. So we've got here a average salary of about 41,100 crown per month. You'll notice there is a difference here. It's kind of interesting. So Sweden is very much about equal pay, but one thing that I've learned just over this last week, sometimes I've noticed men make more in a certain career and sometimes women make more. And so what it was explained to me is that if there is a woman-dominated career, then typically the men are offered more so as to encourage more men to come into that specialty. And it goes the other way as well. If it's a man-dominated type of industry, then women are offered more so as to balance so they have equal men and women. So, for example, in a lot of construction fields, you'll find that it is a man-dominated industry, and so women are on average being paid a little bit more so as to encourage more women to work in those industries. So here we see a difference of about 2,000, well, not really even 2,000 crown, but yeah, from 40,900 for women and 42,200 for men. So yeah, so it's not a huge difference actually, because when you do the conversion, what I do for the conversions with crowns in Sweden, the crowns versus the dollar, I usually just take the number and I divide by 10 and I come up with roughly what it is in dollars. So this right here, if you took off the zero, it's going to be roughly about $4,090. It's actually going to be a little bit less than that. The Swedish krona has been a bit weak here lately, but just as an estimate, just to make it easier, we'll just divide it by 10. So basically, for all sexes here, the average salary for a basic educated nurse is going to be about $4,110, which is actually pretty good. Here in Sweden, that's good. And compared to the United States, I know there's a lot of states in the U.S., actually probably the vast majority of them, that this is probably about the same. But there are some big differences here in Sweden and in America that need to be taken in consideration. You don't just stop here at this. And we'll get into that here a little bit later. So a lot of it has to do with your age. So here we've got, if you're 18 to 24 years of age, you notice that the salaries are quite a bit lower. So, for example, let's say you're 20 and you just graduated as a nurse, which actually I think probably more realistic would probably be like 21, because I think it's about 3 years of training here. So you've got your 3 years of training, you're 21 years of age, and you start working in the public sector, say in a hospital. Your average salary is going to be about almost 33,000 crowns. So like I said, divide by 10, and that is going to be about $3,300 per month. Actually going to be a little bit less than that, probably I'm guessing around 3150, somewhere around there. If you want to get technical, you can put this in on a conversion calculator, as these rates are always changing. If you look at the private sector, there's not a whole lot of difference. So basically, there is public and private sectors. Where you start noticing the difference is as you increase in age between the private and public sector. So, for example, at my age, I am 42, just turned 42. So the public sector, say if you work in a hospital that's under the government, your monthly average salary is going to be about 38,300 crown, or about $3,800 a month. And if you're working private, like for example, if you work for a home health care company that is privately owned, it's going to be quite a bit higher. So here we've got 47,600 crown, or roughly about probably $4,700 a month. So that's pretty good. Now, you notice also here we've got women in the public sector 38,100 versus, and let's see, men in the public sector 39,300. So 39,300 versus 38,100. And nursing is a very female dominated industry in Sweden, and so they're trying to encourage more men. I know where I work, I am definitely in the minority. In America, it was a little bit more balanced. There were still more women than men, but it was quite a bit more balanced out than here in Sweden. So yeah, so that's a little bit about that. There's a lot of other things to be taking into consideration. So let's get into that. Vacation and vacation days is what this is talking about here. So something to think about in Sweden is even if the salary is like a lot less than, say, for example, I come from Texas, so the salary is way higher in Texas, and we'll get into that a little bit later, or say California or New York. But a thing here in Sweden is they get a lot of vacation time. So in Texas, there were companies I worked for that had zero vacation time. If you took off, you didn't get paid. That's just how it was. Then a lot of something that's a little bit more the norm is you get 2 weeks vacation with a lot of places. Thankfully, I worked for a hospital that actually offered more, and it's based on how long you'd work for the company. And I worked there 16 years, so I actually got a little bit more. It wasn't a whole lot more, but yeah, so we got that. But the other issue is you also, if you were sick, you didn't have separate sick days, and that's pretty typical, at least in Texas, where if you're sick, it comes out of your vacation days. So say if you get 2 weeks paid vacation and you're sick for a week, you only have 1 week paid vacation left. So that's kind of a problem. Another thing is the culture behind taking a vacation. I was made to feel very guilty whenever I took vacations. Not everywhere, but there was a lot of departments I had worked in my adult life where you took a vacation, there was a lot of jealousy and people getting very angry that you're taking days off, because it was putting them in a situation where, they're already short staffed and now they have to worry about covering for you and that sort of thing. So there's that. But here in Sweden, if you look on this, it's saying that you get about, according to the vacation laws, that all employed have a right to 25 days of vacation per each year. So that's 5 weeks paid vacation. So everyone has the right to that if they are a full-time employee. Now, because of my age, what I have found is most the websites that I'm looking at, I get up to here. It's saying, or actually it doesn't say here, but a lot of the ones I've looked at, because of my age of being over 40, between the ages of 40 and 50, a lot of them will offer you about a little bit over 6 weeks vacation. So, and I've been informed that that's what I get is 6 weeks paid vacation. And then once you get over the age of 50, I've seen some where they add like 1 extra day over that of vacation. So that's pretty awesome. So something that you have to do is when you're thinking about how much you're making per month, you also need to average in, how much vacation you're getting and do some math there. So you can divide it up per hour, how much that's worth, and then spread that out over the year. And I mean, think about that. You're basically, if you're getting like me, 6 weeks paid vacation, you're getting an entire month and a half basically for free, for lack of a better expression, and which, in America, you're getting maybe 2 weeks. Now, another thing to think about is we get sick pay here in Sweden. So basically, if you're sick and it's less than a couple weeks, usually the employer will pay for those sick days. And if it's over 2 weeks, then the government steps in. And a lot of the websites that I'm looking at, that's good for like up to 6 months. And in America, I had to actually pay something separate in order to be able to have that coverage. And I couldn't afford it because by the time you start paying for health insurance and then you pay for accidental, like if you get in a car wreck and lose your limb, so you pay for special insurance for that. Or if you pay for, if you die, so you pay life insurance, or all these little things. And then there's short-term disability and long-term disability where you can't claim for, let's say you're hurt really bad and you're not able to go back to work for 6 months. Well, for the first few weeks, you're not going to be getting paid or coverage, and you have to wait. Well, a lot of people need money then, and so in order to have that period covered, you actually have to pay extra money for that as well. So that's some of the stuff you have to deal with in America, but you don't have to worry about any of that stuff in Sweden because all that stuff is taken care of by the taxes. And so that's something that's going to be good to talk about too, is the taxes. So people say, oh, well, you're going to pay a whole lot of tax. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, so here we are on the tax agency website. This would be like the IRS in America, but this is a much more friendly tax agency compared to the United States. Believe it or not, they actually even figure up your taxes for you, so you don't have to pay like an attorney to do that, like what I have had to do in America. And to the day I die, I will have to either figure my taxes myself and pay for some sort of software and file with the United States, even if I don't live and work there, make no money there, unless I renounce my citizenship. But in Sweden, it's a lot easier. They figure it for you, and you just approve it or disapprove it and give them your adjustments that you want to make. And yeah, that's all included with being a taxpayer here. So let's look at this. So I've got my tax year that we're going to look at, 1981. We've got it for Malmö, which is like a very common tax area here. We could change it to some other ones. Like, for example, we could go to let's say I've lived in Helsingborg before, so we could even say Helsingborg. So let's just do that for fun. So Helsingborg, I'm not a member of a Swedish church, so click that and next. And then here you fill in a bunch of information about, there's other details and that sort of thing. What I'm gonna say is for my salary. Okay, there we go. I was wondering why it was having issues. So I had to change this to January to December. So we are going to say that my monthly amount of money, we're saying 40,000 crown. So times 12 is going to be, so that'll be about 480,000 kroner for the whole year. So about $48,000. And I'm just going to skip all this stuff, but you can put all those kinds of things in there. And then count it up. So the entire amount of tax I'm going to be spending for the whole year is going to be about 111,591 kroner. So that is about $11,000 of tax out of 48,000. So that's not really that bad if you think about it. Here it's saying that's about 9,299 kroner, or about $900 of tax per month out of my 4,000. So it's still not that bad, really, if you think about it. Because with this, you're also getting, like, your sick pay, you're getting your vacation. Most Swedish, if they've gone to school, they went to school without having to pay for it because it was paid for by their taxes. They've got daycare for the children, which you have to pay for that. That's a huge cost in America. Just so many little details. Like when I moved apartments, I actually got a contribution from the taxes to pay for like half of my moving costs. That's just unheard of in America. I get a little extra money towards buying shoes for work, and it just goes on and on and on, all these little benefits and stuff like that you're getting for that. So you're really not paying a whole lot for what you're actually getting, which is pretty cool. But the salaries are quite a bit lower in Sweden as compared to America. So when I was a brand new nurse, I know that was 2010, and they started me out at $23.50 an hour. And then I was getting extra money for nights and night shift and weekends. And so I ended up averaging about what I'm making now in Sweden, which is, a little over a decade later. And like I said, I've got experience and I've got all these extra credentials and that sort of thing. But then you have to remember, in these jobs, you might get 2 weeks vacation, and a lot of these places, like I know where I worked, you do not get sick pay anymore. That comes out of your vacation time. So you have to average all those factors in. I also get a lot of benefits as well working here in Sweden. So, like I get money towards my work shoes. I also do not purchase scrubs in Sweden. Those are actually provided for you at work. So, like they wash them for you and then you just go pick them up in the morning. You have a dressing room, you go do that. Another thing, too, is the workload is a lot lighter in Sweden. For example, you as a nurse, you get breaks a lot more frequently. You get your 30-minute break on an 8-hour shift. Some nurses work maybe 10-hour shifts, but usually it's an 8-hour shift. You get your 30-minute break, and then usually you're able to also, if you work day shift, get a maybe 15-minute break for fika, which is like a coffee break or breakfast. And then some people are able to work it out to get another break in the afternoon. So that's for just an 8-hour shift. But in America, I can't tell you how many times I didn't even get a 30-minute break and we worked 12 and a half hours. They say it's a 12-hour shift, but you have that overlapping of the two shifts to report. So, it's 12 and a half or 13 hours that you're working. And sometimes you can barely even make it to the bathroom to go and pee. So you have to think about that when you're looking at these salaries and stuff like that. I do still think that America comes out a little bit ahead, though, when it comes to the salaries. But you have to ask yourself, is that really worth it? Is it really worth the mental health, strain that you're going through, or the physical strain that you're going through? Because money doesn't buy everything. Money doesn't buy your health. It doesn't buy time with your family, that sort of thing. Another thing to think about is the cost of living as well. And so in Sweden, if you don't live in Stockholm's a whole nother ball of wax. I'm not going to talk about that today, but I can say, like, my apartments that I have had here in Sweden, both of them have been under about, I'd say between $700 and $750 a month for a very large apartment. And also in Sweden, you're close to a lot of stuff, so I don't need a car here. I've been going just fine without a car lately. You've got, for my bus tickets, like $60 a month, and I've got unlimited travel I can do on all the buses and stuff in my area. In America, you have to have a car. You have to do a lot of time on the highway, driving, traveling, that sort of thing. So those are things to think about. So I've got some statistics here of kind of like the cost of living, like where I come from in Texas. So remember I said, my rent's usually around $700 to $750 a month here in Sweden. For a very central located apartment. And, you've got the beach here, you've got nature, you've got all this stuff here. But in Texas, there's not a lot of that unless you live, like, say, somewhere like Houston. And the beaches are really not that great in Houston. Sorry for those of you that love the beaches in Houston. I'm not, after living in Sweden, yeah. So here I've got some information. So the average cost of a house is about $243,000. That's actually really cheap compared to the rest of the United States. You get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to buying a house in Texas, but it's changing. It's rapidly changing. So let's look at some other costs here. So an average one-bedroom apartment in Texas, let's look at Dallas because that's where I come from, is $1,216. So that's almost twice the price of what it is here in Sweden. And that's an average. That's nothing fancy. If you go up to a 2-bedroom, you're paying like another almost $250 a month. That's just crazy. Like I said, you're not close to anything. You still have a car to drive everywhere. There's usually no lake or ocean or beautiful areas around you. You're just kind of in the middle of the city. I will say one thing that is way better is the cost of groceries. Groceries are outrageous here in Sweden. Like, I don't understand that. That's one thing I don't get, because they're all about equality here and everybody having access to healthy food and that sort of thing. But the groceries, especially when it comes to like vegetables and fruit is just outrageous, and that is a lot cheaper in the United States. So that's kind of strange to me. Okay, here's another one. Transportation. So like I said, I've spent like $60 a month on a bus ticket, but in Texas, you don't really have that. There are some bus stations, but it's not adequate to fulfill the needs of everybody. And usually, you don't want to take the public transportation in the United States, usually. Um, it's kind of sad. But here we've got, if you have no children and you're just by yourself, so $5,477 in transportation related experiences each year, according to data from MIT. I mean, that's crazy. $5,477 transportation costs. So gas, your car payment, your car insurance. Yeah, I think nurses are decently paid here. Could go up a little bit more considering the fact that there is such a shortage here in Sweden because so many people are leaving to get paid a little bit more in Denmark and Norway. So that kind of tells me that they probably do need to increase it a little bit more. I do think that they should pay people a little bit more based on their loyalty to a company for like staying there for a while. But that seems to be a problem even in the United States. I noticed there was a lot of people that would move around to be able to make more money. I don't understand why companies do that, why they don't pay more money for people to stay there, reward their loyalty. So that seems to be a problem across the board, whether you're in Sweden or America. So hopefully this is helpful information to you and answer your questions. Feel free if you have more comments or questions, leave that in the comment section and I will try and see if I can reply to all your comments. Thank you so much for your support and you have an awesome day.